again today. Just a quick order of business. I know this is a public meeting. This is for the advisory group. Public have joined us, so if there are some comments from the public, feel free to put those in the chat window, and then if we have time at the end of the meeting, we can get into those and address some of those as they come up. So we also have a few new advisory group members. We'll get into that as well momentarily, but just want to run through kind of project status update. So this is kind of carryover. You've seen this slide before, but this is the process of public feedback. We're in that involve, collaborate stage, still gathering input. This is closing up our session. We're trying to wrap up this particular phase of the project and come up with a final presentation. So one more opportunity for some feedback from the advisory group before we compile that into our final presentation. Quick overview. Here we are, Thomas Architecture Studios. That's me, Amos Callender. We have above us Rachel Jameson and Sab Givney, the executive director at the Port of Olympia, who ultimately reports to the commissioners. And then on our team, we are working with the advisory group people. That's you. We also are taking general public comments, and we had some feedback from a few select stakeholders. Our consultants include John Owen of Makers Architecture, John Payne from SiteWorks, Bob Connolly from SCJ, and Abigail from Mont McDonald. This is the current list of advisory group members. One edit to this, you'll see Myron and Noreen were excused. They had some other commitments. Once we extended this meeting out a little further, they had some conflicts, so they stepped out. But we do have a couple new members that came in. Eddie and Becky Miller from Swantown Marina Litter Board. We also have Nick Carey from KGY, Austin Rogland from Rogland's Olympia Marine Center, Gretchen Van Duzen from Olympia Area Rowing. We should have a member from Deschutes Estuary Restoration Team. I don't have a contact, so if you have, if you're here, feel free to let me know. We'll get your name down. Joel Carlson from Sierra Club, Deb Patton from the Port of Olympia Citizens Advisory Committee, Bob Van Schurl, Olympia Yacht Club, and Stacy Waterman-Hoy from Arbutus Folk School, and then Richard Wells from South Sound Sailing Society. Just wanted to confirm Richard is actually part of this, or if there's somebody else from South Sound Sailing Society that's in his place. Just want to get your name documented for that. Oh, thank you, Sue. As far as a member from the Deschutes Estuary Restoration Team, we'll document that. And then a list of select stakeholders. These are some other people that we got some input from. Here we are as our schedule. This has been slightly updated to extend out a few additional meetings at the request of the commissioners. And then, so we're basically wrapping up this advisory group meeting with new members, getting some additional feedback, and then we'll continue on with the development of the final presentation and run that by the public, the advisory group, and then ultimately back to the commissioners for review. And this is the updated schedule showing those additional meetings. We have the one today, another one for the advisory group coming up on the 24th. So go ahead and add that to your calendar if you haven't added that as well. And then the public outreach on the March 4th and final presentation on March 8th. So moving forward, we have kind of an overview of our community feedback summary. This is high-level information of the outreach effort that we have undertaken for this project. You can see in the red, the public outreach meetings on the calendar, in the dark blue, the advisory board meetings, the darker gray, select stakeholder meetings, and then light gray, some commission meetings, both public and work sessions. And then we're working on this slide, trying to get the data, so we'll see this in the public outreach more complete, but social media posts, meeting participants, and then email contacts. Basically trying to qualify the number of outreach opportunities we've issued to get public feedback, the effort we've taken for that. Here are some summary information for survey number 1 and 2. We had 442 respondents for survey 1, 385 for survey 2. And you'll see in the responses that on survey number 2, we had additional 234 new participants. So some of survey 1 continued on to survey 2, but 234 additional participants. So getting more and more people interested and involved. So moving forward, just wanted to quickly brush through the development plan, get you refamiliarize yourself with what we've established, what's going on. So here's our current site. Location, the scope of our project in pink there, and you'll see on the far left site A as it wraps all the way through site K, kind of the center middle, and then a couple of overwater sites on the far left. We have also added this slide. This is the connectors, an important part of getting people from this development area connected back to downtown, and the appropriate paths and methods to do that. So we have along the top, that kind of dark green, that's existing trail along the waterfront. And you can see in the purple, some proposed connectors back to downtown. And in that blue area, you can see this City of Olympia's proposed bike lane. So that might be a key connector for future along Washington Street there. Just a quick refresh of the walkability, so the distance time travel from this project site area out to the downtown. So it is a walkable area that the connection can be made pretty easily. And then I'll kind of go through these really quick, and towards the end, there'll be opportunity for some input and feedback. Ultimately, I want to get a lot of feedback from the new members on the advisory group, and then also time for other existing members to be able to respond to those and provide some feedback as well. So this is site A. To the north, some potential uses would be hotel, sailing center, mixed use. And you can see on the top right kind of some statistics and data for each of those sites. Site B, mostly existing to remain. It is a parking lot, and there might be some updates to that, but really this site right now is being proposed just to stay as is. Same thing with site C. We have some existing facilities, the boat launch, the Olympia area, rowing buildings there as well. So not a lot of redevelopment planned for this currently. Site D, potential use would be the port administration building. Maybe some mixed use or light industrial could also be located on that site. Site E, proposed use is RV resort, and some other potential uses might be mixed use, light industrial, or sailing center. Site F, existing to remain as the marine supply and boatworks in that area. G, that's just to the inland side along Marine View Drive. Pretty narrow site, and some potential use there would be mixed use, additional dry storage, or light industrial. And then site H, it's a very skinny site, not a lot of room for development, so proposed as existing to remain, maybe a linear park or just an area for some shoreline improvements along there. Site I, that is right to the north of the Hands-On Children's Museum, and some potential use for that would be an expansion of the Hands-On Children's Museum into that lot. Some other potential use might be mixed use or light industrial as well. Site J, that is that inside kind of pie wedge shape, and that is also potential use of a lot expansion. So that's kind of earmarked potentially for a lot to expand to that site. Other potential use would be mixed use, dry storage, or light industrial. And then site K, the one inland site, a potential use for that might be the port admin building, light industrial, mixed use, or potentially a maintenance shop for the port itself. Then we have the two overwater sites. Overwater 1, that's the current KGY radio station. Planning existing to remain, but some other long-term potential use might be like a museum or cultural center. And then Overwater Site 2, could that be existing to remain? There's some potential to combine Overwater Site 1 and 2, and we may develop a little bit larger footprint with that. Other potential use would be commercial, maybe like a fish market, for example, a sailing center, or a cultural center for that site as well. So then I'm going to go through survey number 2, kind of a pretty quick clip as well, again, trying to provide a lot of time for some feedback and comments. So just make note of some of these slides and we can definitely go back to them with your comments. So results of survey 2, 9 questions. And then question 1, how familiar are you with the Port Olympia Waterfront Destination Development Plan? So quite a few of the people responding were somewhat familiar. And then it kind of shoulders off on either side of not very familiar or extremely familiar. And then here's what I was referencing earlier about number of people participating in survey number 1, 41% said yes. And then here's where we kind of get into some scoring and ranking. So the question was about access to water, what was preferred choice? And we went with a weighted scoring system. And you can see small watercraft launch was first choice, followed by a bench wall was second, promenade boardwalk was third, and then stepped bulkhead was a fourth choice. You can see a bench wall actually was the preferred option the small watercraft launch was, I'm still getting that wrong. Promenade boardwalk in red, that was the highest first choice ranking. Red is first choice, blue is second choice, dark gray third, and light gray is fourth. You can see, for example, on the step bulkhead, it was definitely picked as the fourth choice of the 4. You can also notice there that in second and third choice are very similar. First choice is a little higher, but they're all very close together. The 360 respondents, small watercraft boat launch came in most desired, and then some ranking by percentages, again, really close for promenade and the boat launch. Question 4, how important is a park with a children's play structure for any of these sites? That got 3.5 stars. So just looking at the potential to add some sort of play area for children within the overall destination development plan. Something the public wanted to see. Question 5, which of the potential shoreline improvements options do you prefer most? Living shoreline by far was first choice, and then rock was a second choice, and then third, reinforced earth, fourth with the bulkhead seawall. So living shoreline by far was the preferred choice. So the plan moving forward should look at how we can incorporate some of those features into the overall destination development plan. Question 6 is asking people to rank in order their preferred style of architecture. So there were, looks like 7 different choices. And as you can see, Pacific Northwest style by far was number 1 choice. Pull up some additional data. So 570 first choice votes, more than double Longhouse in there. That was the second place first choice votes. The second and third, which was Longhouse and Craftsman style. If you average those scores together, they are relatively close. And then same thing with fourth and fifth being traditional and industrial. And then neo-traditional and contemporary were kind of lower on the spectrum. Question 7, please select the top 5 images related to path and connectors within the development area. So I'll quickly flip through, well, we can go through the ranking, but boardwalk became in as first choice, and then tree line second, combined bike third, you can see fourth is paved open, fifth was separated, sixth crushed stone, seventh concrete open, eighth pavers, ninth landscape, and 10th paved infill. One edit we're going to make to this moving forward is going to rank them left to right. So first choice on the left, and then stepping them down, second choice to fourth, just to make it clear and easier to read for the public. These are some of the photos examples. The chart here was a little too dense to get those photos on there, so I just wanted to kind of remind people what it is those options were. So boardwalk, crushed stone, paved infill, combined bike, pedestrian, landscaped. And then you see the concrete open, the pavers up in the top middle, tree lined on the right, paved open field, and then the separated bike path and pedestrian path in the bottom left. So within that, boardwalk weighted score of 722 points. tree line was also highly scored at 670. And then a tie for third place was combined bike and then the paved open. Fifth place had a score of 570. And then falling in sixth through ninth place were all basically right at the same level, tied. So crushed stone, concrete open, pavers, and landscape, they all kind of fell together in that same grouping. And then last was the paved infill. And it, interestingly, only had one vote as first choice, and weighted score of 178. Question 8, what are your top 2 preferred options for an event gathering space? Again, first choice, covered wood. That by far had the highest number of first choice votes. And then second and third came in very close together, but covered steel did make second place. Third place, open crushed stone. Fourth was indoor enclosed, and fifth was the open concrete. Question 9, regarding potential gateways or connectors between the waterfront development area and downtown Olympia, please rate the following images. So this was asking the public to we'll go to some of these graphics, but we have some potential gateway connector pieces that we'd like to get the public to weigh in on as far as what would be most ideal as the connector. So information on the far left, a beacon next to that, a tower option, sculptural on the far right, and then arched arbor top left, an architectural archway in bottom left, some sort of artistic markings maybe in the ground or on pavement in the middle, and then a plaza bottom right. Let me go back to the scoring on those. You can see that arbor archway came in as the first choice, followed by a plaza as second. Third was informational signage. Fourth was some sort of sculptural connector or gateway. Fifth, artistic markings. Sixth was the architectural archway. Seventh was a tower, and then coming in last was a beacon, was that 8th place choice. Let's see if there's any additional data we could pull from that. So the beacon, least like, 174 respondents said they did not like it. So there's a large number of people that just were adverse to the beacon option. And then you see some of the point scoring for the rest. 6th place, archway, was kind of right in the middle, people liking it, not liking it. And the 7th place tower, negative 134 points. Again, this was all a weighted score, so we took basically rankings of the first place choice, gave that a point, and then last place, least like, gave that a negative ranking, and then averaged the score, and that's how we came up with this scoring for these options. So then just kind of wrap up where we're at, next steps and opportunity for input. So we do have our final presentation, again, I mentioned Wednesday, February 24th for the advisory group, and then we'll take any edits or comments you have from that, feed that out to the public on March 4th, and then fold in those potential comments into our final commission presentation on March 8th. And that final presentation, here's an outline of basically what we're presenting. It's kind of a summary of what we put together from Public Outreach 1 all the way through this last public outreach. CURB, that's the grant that the port is getting for this particular study, so some information about that. Our last meeting, there was a question about an outcome statement and underlying assumptions, so we're working on those currently, and I'm going to have those folded in as part of our final presentation, including some guiding principles. We'll have our team and schedule, list of the advisory group and stakeholders, which you saw at the beginning of this presentation. The data on the public meetings, more of the statistics of number of people outreached and participants and survey counts, and then kind of a list of all the commission meetings that we've gone through. We'll have a couple of slides addressing sea level rise and how what methods and means we can deploy to make that work. And then, if you recall, we had some regulation zoning slides that we can fold those in and share, just basically limitations on what these sites can and cannot accommodate. And then we'll go through a very quick summary of the survey results from Survey 1 and Survey 2. and then the development site plans, A through K, sites A through K with those linkages. And then as far as just attaching, we'll have all of the data and the PowerPoint presentations as a final attachment. So all of this will be shared with the commission and kind of for them to wade through and evaluate as they move forward with their decisions. So that's the end of these kind of quick run through. I did blast through that really quickly in hopes to be able to open up a lot of time for some comment and feedback. So at this point, I'd like to open up to the new members. I'll jump back to that slide again, just so we can refresh memory of who those people are. And at this point, actually, I'd like to maybe just run down top to bottom so we can make sure we can get everybody's feedback. So Nick, if you're on, do you want to jump in and provide any comments or feedback?
Thank you very much. And I do appreciate the opportunity to share some of the thoughts that I've compiled after reviewing your previous presentations and all the materials that have been posted online. And of course, I think everyone here is rather familiar with KGY and where KGY is located, and that we've been there since about 1960 or so. We have a pretty cool building, very unique for a radio station to be in such a place. And so I have some observations that are specific to Site 1. I think that's a natural place for me to start with some of my feedback. And I think the first initial observation that I have is how successful the park is, the Billy Frank Jr. Trail and the park here that's adjacent to us. It's really well trafficked, and that's something that we witness here at KGY. Some people, park kind of in our parking lot or in the restaurant parking lot, and then really enjoy that trail. And I'll get into a little bit more of the specifics with that. But aside from the trail, and especially during the warmer months, particularly the summertime when it's so beautiful here in the Northwest, it's really common to see several people, many community members, park at the Hearth Fire or at KGY, and certainly walk along the shoreline, but also like on a trail, but also walk along the beach. There's a pretty accessible spot between our building and the Hearth Fire where people can easily get onto the beach. And at those extreme low tides, it's pretty common to see members of the public in the mud, exploring during low tide, walking incredibly far out. Sometimes the tide is so low, it's almost out to the one of the channel markers. And they certainly seem to like to explore out there. And certainly that causes some pretty dirty shoes. And I'm always a little bit shocked to see how far people go out there, but they certainly do, and it seems like they enjoy that. It does lead me to believe that as the group here, talks about access to the water, boat access, or walking along the shoreline, I think it's important to consider that the people, are also showing an interest in being, if not in the water, certainly close to it, on the tide flats, essentially. Another element that I've jotted down here is I'm a dog owner, so when it comes to the park next to us, I mean, it's a beautiful place to walk a dog, to walk my dog, for instance, and we oftentimes see other dogs. And I think it's really appreciated that the port has garbage cans in these areas. And I'd say, if there might be a consideration to have more garbage cans, maybe more garbage cans closer to the viewpoint in between KGY and the hearth fire. On occasion, people do like to hang out there and take in the sunset or just enjoy, you know, their lunch. There's a bit of a picnic table there, and on occasion there is some debris that gets left behind. Bottles, soda cans, beer cans. Fortunately, I haven't experienced too much. It's very rare for me to experience any sort of like drug paraphernalia left behind, like needles or something like that. I've found one in my history of being here for 10 years, and that was rather recent. So now, does a garbage can make a difference for people actually putting stuff in the garbage can? Hey, that's a good question, but I think that could be beneficial. I also think it's really a nice amenity and a smart thing to do for the port to have the bags to pick up from behind our dogs. And you know, sometimes I forget plastic bags, and when he does his business, it's nice to have a bit of a backup plan there. So that's something that I would encourage. I also think a public bathroom could be a beneficial amenity, whether that's specific here to Site A or along the Billy Frank Jr. Trail in general. I also think it's a bit dubious. So I could understand a balanced approach and consideration for, you know, what goes into a public bathroom. And then as I think about a future use for the Site A and the hotel being a strong idea that has been identified, an example comes to mind of, and it's in Bellingham, and I have a couple of Bellingham examples here in my spiel, and I did go to Western Washington University, so I spent some time up there, and that's a bit of a reference point of mine. But in Bellingham, they have the Hotel Bellwether, and I think that's a good comparison for this particular situation. They have the Hearthfire restaurant in Bellingham next to a rather high-end hotel. And this application here just seems to be a really good comparison for this site. As I move beyond Site A specifically, I think I'm particularly interested to see more of the ideas for Sites D and E. Swantown, that's kind of what I call it. I think that the mixed use development is pretty appealing for me in those sites. I think that the port has a great opportunity to capture some of the demand for space like this. Retail, restaurant, professional offices, I think would all be a really good fit there. And the view of East Bay being just, and the water in general being just a tremendous asset of the ports. A lot of folks are located in business parks that are not nearly as beautiful as the port property is. And I think that the future could be really bright for professionals seeking small to medium office space in this, you know, particular area. It would certainly make, I think, going to work quite enjoyable for them, perhaps more so than where they're located now. I also reflect on some of the problems that downtown Olympia is facing today, and I kind of have a caveat. Even before we had this dramatic homeless crisis in downtown Olympia and our area, there were many challenges that downtown faced anyway. Accessibility and parking, and those who lease space downtown maybe not having an ideal situation for infrastructure. And I think any development that the port can do to create this destination district could be really appealing for new businesses to come into our area. and be very successful. I also am so pleased to see that you're considering the connectors between downtown and between the district or between the market and say Swantown. In my mind, that's a key element for success here. So I think that's great. You've identified that. And you know, quite frankly, I think that another coffee shop could be a bit appreciated, either in Swantown or further down, like North Point, and could be rather successful. There's the one at the market, but I'll be honest, that one's even a little bit far for me to trek over to during the day. So, you know, the more the merrier when it comes to coffee shops. And that's what I have so far, and I thank you very much for taking the time.
Great, thank you, Nick. Moving along, let's touch base with Austin. Are you online, Austin?
I am.
Perfect.
Yeah. Hello. This is my first meeting with you guys. I am the new owner of the building at Site G, which is Swantown Boat Works as well. I renamed it Olympia Marine Center as part of our Destination Waterfront program. Trying to, you know, just improve the boating community around here. Been working on boats my whole life. Bought out Pettit Marine as well, so that is no longer there. As part of the Destination Waterfront, I am opening up a secondhand marine parts store in my building. You know, trying to move forward on just getting people down here and familiar with the port, trying to offer more services at the boat works as well. Kind of seeing where you guys, you know, going for like Site K. I believe Nick over at KGY was talking about coffee stands and stuff like that. I'm all for that as well. So yeah, I mean, just different areas. You have a lot of good ideas. The boardwalk, I like that idea. Somehow maybe even attaching it over to the existing boardwalk would be cool. Not sure if it's real feasible or practical. Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at this thing and figuring out what I can do for myself and for you guys to contribute.
Great. Thank you, Austin.
Yep, thank you.
And I'm just going to note that moving forward, we are kind of wrapping up towards the end. We do want to get your feedback and comments. So if you didn't get a chance to comment here, or you have something else that comes up to mind, feel free to reach out to me by email, and I'll make sure that gets folded into our information that we're gathering.
Perfect.
Gretchen, are you online, Gretchen?
I'm on. I might be shown as on twice because I have to talk on my phone but look on the bigger screen. So I'm Gretchen Van Dusen. I'm part of Olympia Area Rowing. I've been involved for 20-ish years there. The boathouse is about, I think, 16 years old. And I've been a rower, a coach. I've been a past board member. My husband's a current board member. So I know a lot of angles. I also, along with MSGS, was the designer of the boathouse. So I worked with the port on that process. The port was pretty different at that point then. I'll try and keep my comments because we're tight on time to a few sites that are the ones most adjacent to us. As far as our capacity, we're not looking to expand at the moment, although we have lots of ways in which we wish we could do winter workouts there better, things like that. But the boathouse works well for us. It's the right size at the moment. We share it with Olympia Parks and Rec, who is not on this advisory, right?
Correct. We do have some city members,
yeah.
but not.
I just filled out their survey last night, and so I realized, and just that's who we work with a lot because we share the building. They have a small part of our building. Anyway, a lot of the siting of the boathouse had to do with Site B, and it's not clear to me on your stuff, but Site B is a cap on a toxic landfill, so it can't have any development on it, right? It can be a
That's
parking lot or things on the surface, was my understanding.
there is potential to develop. There's some costs and fees associated with that. We did touch base with that. You weren't part of the meeting, but we did touch base on that particular aspect of Site B. But yeah, you are correct. That is a Cascade Pool site, and that is a capped contaminated site.
Okay, yeah, so our building backs right up to the edge of the perimeter of that. Anyway, it is obviously Site B is super appreciated as a destination right now. It does seem to me that there's an opportunity to create an edge promenade up there also with more amenities, like sort of doubling up on the path on the water, but maybe more benches or that kind of thing. Similar to what Nick said from KGY is, we see a ton of use on the Billy Frank Trail. It's obviously very needed amenity and successful, and more things to make that work better. We also see people crossing the turnaround in front of our building, and that's not the safest thing. And I don't know that trailers really want us to put a crosswalk in kind of super close, but most people do not walk over towards the restrooms in order to cross. And I've never seen anything happen, but there's a lot of stuff going on there. And then Site A that Nick was also commenting on, it would be great if that was considered as more of a public amenity from my perspective, kind of a place that's not so much private use, but more of a public, whether it's in an even larger park or a gathering spot. It's funny that you brought up the examples from Bellingham, because I don't know the name of it, but I went to a big joint birthday party celebration in Bellingham a couple summers ago, and it was out on a piece of property near the water like this, with big grassy area. People were flying kites. There was a building you could rent there to have events, much bigger than the building that the City of Olympia has on the boardwalk to rent. And just now that triggered that idea of more of a either an outdoor gathering spot, but even a rentable indoor gathering spot as a good thing for there. And then from the perspective of being the dock owner, obviously we get a lot of use of the paddle boarders sharing our docks, and that works out fine. Pretty respectful of each other, I think. But I know for the small boat center ideas, they really are going to need to be in a place that doesn't have mud flats so much. And so that is a hard thing to figure out, like to have water access all the time. Yeah. And then it's not really the focus of your thing, but I do hope there will be a lot of an ongoing aspect of education on stormwater and on sea level rise. It seems like such an opportunity to create landscaping things that address that, and to include some public education, because that's obviously going to be an increasing part of our experience of the waterfront, I assume. I don't have too much else to offer. If anyone wants to ask me rowing related questions separately, happy to take that via email or something.
Great. Thank you, Gretchen. How about Sue? You want to chime in now, Sue?
You betcha. Hi, everybody. My name's Sue Patnute. I'm with the Deschutes Estuary Restoration Team, or probably infamously known as DIRT. We are excited about this, actually, and want to be able to help in any way we can. My overall comment on what I've seen so far is, how do we know what each one of these ideas and elements contribute to the environment, and how can we make sure that everything's as environmentally safe as possible? DIRT is launching a new program. We're in the middle of putting it together right now. We are going to be doing kayak patrols of South Sound and monitoring water quality and doing cleanup work. So to the extent that we can help with any kind of environmental issues that might come up, our kayak patrols are already becoming very popular. People are wanting to get out there on the water. So we'll be looking for launch sites. If there are launch sites that we can use around the port, it'd be great. The other thing I would say is, I like Gretchen's idea, and I think there was an idea in the plan about an outdoor spot to rent, someplace that we can gather. We are always looking for a place to have, annual events and gather people together to do presentations and things like that. It would be great. And it would be great if the place had access to Wi-Fi and an indoor area for screen showing and things like that. And then the other thing I would bring up is the need to look at the overall plan in terms of climate change and sea level rise, as a few people mentioned. Sea level rise is going to be a big deal. It already is. And climate change brings more rain, and rain means more stormwater runoff. And more stormwater runoff means water quality issues. So however we can look at this in terms of impervious surface, lessening that. I like the idea of the tree-lined shorelines and walkways, putting as much green in as possible, and the pavers that do go in, make them impervious so that they could, or pervious, I should say, so that they actually absorb the water and put it back into the system as much as possible. Other than that, I'm excited about being able to comment. DIRT is here, ready to help in any way we can. And if you want to go on a kayak patrol, get a hold of me. We'll have fun. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Sue. How about Joel? You're up. Joel from Sierra? No. We'll skip Joel.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
Can
great.
you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we're concerned about all the dioxin in Bud Bay. It seems like we need to do first things first. And the log pollution, we need to figure that out. And then the dam removal, we need to figure that out before we do any planning with the shoreline here and so forth. So we're seriously looking at this, and we need to fix the environment first, is in my opinion.
Okay. Make a note of that. Next on the list, Eddie and Becky from Smontown Liveaboard.
Good morning.
Hi there.
We're utility infielders for Noreen and her husband, Myron. And so we appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this ongoing operation. And we thank them for recommending us to you and for the opportunity we have to carry on where they left off. We appreciate it very much, the progress you've made already and the plan that you have in place to finish this out. We have a couple of questions that have to do with Site E and also Site OW2. We are liveaboards on KDOC, which is the one that's closest to the south end of the marina docking system. And several years ago, we were very excited about the possibility of what you call potential M, N, and O docks. At that time, that was being discussed as a place for larger boats. I think we still have a waiting list for larger boat owners who want to have slips here locally, and we thought that was a great idea. So I'm hoping that that is not completely excluded from this point on, because that would be an ongoing source of revenue, both in terms of people who have their boats that live in the area and keep them there 12 months out of the year, and also those who would be coming in who would see this as a destination, as many do during the summer. I know you're thinking about that as also a potential location for the sailing center. And I would like to suggest that you consider Site OW2 for the sailing center for several reasons, not the least of which is the access to sailable water from that location. Site E puts you at the south end of a very busy waterway. Not only are the boats in the marina coming and going, but there are boats that are coming and going to the boat works. And so, particularly for smaller boats that would be much more apt to be without a motor, I think site OW2 would be a much more accessible waterway for them, where they can literally, just like the rowing center, be directly into the big water without hardly any difficulty, as opposed to sailing along parallel with East Bay Drive for what must be at least a quarter of a mile, particularly at low tide when there's almost no width to the channel in this area. We look out on it even as we speak, so we see it all the time, just the way it is now. And so we would like for you to seriously consider site OW2 as the location for the sailing center, and go back to the idea of adding docks M, N, and O to site E. I think ultimately that would, whether or not that would interfere with the idea of a RV center, I don't know, but I certainly think it would be more productive financially and than an RV center, or they could coexist possibly. But I hate to see you give up on the idea of not having more large boat slips, particularly when we have a waiting list in the marina for them.
Okay,
I think that's it. If we think of something else, we'll email you.
sounds great. Thank you. Deb Patton, you're up.
Hi there. I am on the Port of Olympia Citizens Advisory Committee, and I was selected to be the representative to this group from them because I was one of the, I think the only member who had been able to attend all 3 of the previous public outreach meetings. And I'd also participated in both of the previous surveys. So, and I also was able to arrange a schedule to be able to be at these next 2 daytime meetings. So I will be reporting back to the POCAC on this coming Tuesday. Our next meeting is the 16th. We have talked about this a little bit. We had a presentation. We were on kind of a hiatus for almost a year because of COVID. And so we just began to meet again. And so we have a lot of catching up to do, but I will give a report to them next Tuesday. But the POCAC likes to follow the port's mission statement, which is to create economic opportunities by connecting Thurston County to the world by air, land, and sea. So many of these proposed projects do create economic opportunities. So I'm sure that the POCAC will be happy about that. And then also, we do know from the vision, the port's Vision 2050, that a number of respondents did want increased recreational opportunities. And so I see many opportunities for increased recreation. So I think that ties in as well with the Vision 2050. I have personally made comment at the community public outreach meetings in the past, and one of my personal comments was that I just wanted to make sure that Site A did not, whatever development occurred there, did not impede the business of the port terminal. I know the map says that the port terminal is not in the scope of this project, but I think there is some code or zoning around how close residential can be to commercial, and with the port terminal right across that narrow road from Site A, I'm just personally concerned about that. I think if it was that open development that several have talked about, you know, like a big grassy area or whatever, that wouldn't be as much of an issue as if it were a hotel. But that's my opinion. Next time when we come back, I will have more opinion from the POCAC as a body.
Okay.
So thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Deb. So just looking at the time, and we have a few more members left. A couple people raised their hand, want to provide some comments. So I will stick around and take any additional comment. But I had Leonard Bauer and Mark Daly had their hand up. So I'll give Leonard, you want to have a few minutes to share what you had to say, and then we'll try to get to Mark, and then follow up with Bob, David, and someone from the South Sound Sailing Society. So go ahead, Leonard.
Great, thank you. I'll do real quick. I just have a few areas, a couple of which I think the plan should highlight. These are probably not new comments, but I think they should be explicitly acknowledged in the plan for consideration by the commissioners. First one is sea level rise. Obviously, anything on any of these sites, this entire area, what we do around sea level rise affects the entire downtown. And so really a lot more coordination and analysis with the city and with WAT. I'm sure you all have that on your thought process, but I really think that should be emphasized in the plan that's needed. Second, around the architectural design, the survey results provide some great public input, but there was also a huge amount of public input into the downtown strategy the city conducted several years ago that had design standards for this area established. So getting those harmonized, and I'm glad you have John Owen on the team who worked on that as well, and hopefully that can happen. And then just a couple of quick other things, the public input on kind of the connectors and the art or different options for that. You know, certainly there's some opportunities for multiple, you know, of those to be done. For example, the artistic, you know, expressions in the sidewalks or whatever, it could be in multiple spots. Sculptures would certainly encourage coordination with our City Arts Commission, which has a whole program on sculptures along Percival Landing and other places. Maybe there's some opportunities to coordinate there. And then finally, Site K, you know, certainly we emphasize, we've talked before, but you know, that's a real key site to connecting people to downtown, and hope that there can continue to be some emphasis on whatever use there being, having pedestrian interest, having you know, a real draw basically to encourage people to come down in front of that building and then over to the other connectors to downtown. Just keep that at the forefront too. Thanks again for the additional meeting and the chance to comment. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Leonard. Mark, let's jump into you.
I'm good at this point. Thanks, Amos.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mark. So again, jumping back into the rest of the new members, Bob, are you with us today?
Yes, yes, I am.
All right, Bob.
Quiet too long, I lose my voice. I'm Bob Van Schro's Olympia Yacht Club. As most of you know, the Olympia Yacht Club has been a sailing or boating center in downtown Olympia since 1904. Even started 16 years before the port. We are, of course, our mission is to provide some facilities, but also to emphasize recreational boating, safety, and navigation. And with that, I want to carry over that priority into the plan that you have here. One of the things that I think needs to be emphasized and prioritized is the need for community access. What I mean by that is our community access. And several ideas came up from Deb and Pat, or you know, Sue, Pat, and Nude about an open space, and I think a launch site for recreational boaters, so the kayaks can be put in the boat. I think that Site E really needs to have an emphasis on use of community recreation, that you could have a park, you could have a boat launch for kayaks and canoes and small sailboats. As you also know, the Olympia Yacht Club is the place right now for sailing education. We have multiple racing teams for both high school and junior high, middle school kids, about 100 kids in that. And each summer, not including last summer, we've grown to serving 400 children from our community in small boat sailing courses. Now that begs the question of where a sailing center might go. putting sailing center at Site E would be impossible to get little kids out onto the water to actually get to the wind. Once upon a time, I was a sailor, and I'm crossed over to power, but that's why I think Site OW2 needs to be looked at. I did ask Amos, and I haven't heard back about what the building restrictions were on that, and hopefully we can understand some of that, Amos. And also, I asked about Site B, and you did indicate just a minute ago about some opportunity to build there, but having some experience with the Cascade Pole Cap, I really wonder. I did actually, after a comment by Bob Jacobs at the last public meeting, actually go out at Site B on a nice day, and it is a marvelous view from there on a good day and needs to be kept as a community asset for people with, I think, adding more benches and things like Patty Belamonte put in her chat. But anyway, I think what would be nice is the RV center, although permitting and adding to the shoreline management plan is kind of questionable. Moving the RV center across to Site K would really be a better alternative. It still gets a revenue, plus it puts a park right there across the street on Site E for the people that come in, plus waterfront access. So I really do hope that we give some very high value to recreational boating and recreational boating for our community. I do compliment the process. This is my second advisory meeting, and I've been in most of the community ones. The process is good. I just think there needs to be a little more transparency on some of the actions. When we heard at the last meeting that they already have sought a permit for the RV site on Site E, it makes you wonder what the process is about if you already have made those kind of decisions. But anyway, I do like it. Amos, your presentations are great, and keep it up. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Member from Arbutus, I think Stacy was out, but David, are you available?
Yes, I'm here. My name is David Paul. I'm the president of the board of Arbutus, have been for 4 years now. Stacy is no longer the executive director. We now have Hillary Tully. I guess I would just want to say that Arbutus is kind of uniquely positioned to really align well with, I think, the overall mission and purpose of the port with regard to education, economic development, and the potential for injecting cultural awareness and history into the plan. We're definitely interested in some of the mixed use or light industrial areas that have been mentioned for potential boat building, potential canoe carving from our local tribes, other traditional crafts and art kinds of activities, metalworking, stone carving. Those are all things that really would draw the public, I think, and would help with the overall vitality of the downtown area. One other thing that I'd say is that Arbutus is connected with musicians, traditional musicians around the country, internationally actually, and we can bring in very easily national acts that would easily fill 1,500 to 3,000 seat venue. And I'm wondering if there's any chance to make an agreement with whatever hotel moves in that a large auditorium space could be sort of shared so that nonprofit organizations might have a reduced cost to use such a venue as opposed to paying full ticket. But either way, Arbutus could definitely use a large venue space. That we're limited now and can't bring our national acts in as a result. The last thing I'll say is that Arbutus is sort of a member of a group of nonprofit organizations that are very interested in supporting the port's mission and being involved in the ongoing development and to the greater success of all these organizations, and make it an environmentally sound, and publicly appreciated space. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, David. So we are at the 11 o'clock timeline, so we running over. So in interest of people in their meetings and time, that I do want to kind of release people if they do have something they have to jump into. We do have one more member, South Sound Sailing Society, and again, I'm going to stick around for any other additional comments. So if you want to hang on the line and provide some feedback, I'd be happy to hear it. Otherwise, I appreciate your time, and if you can stick around, great. If not, I understand and appreciate your comments. So just moving forward, we have someone from South Sound Sailing Society available. I know Richard Wells was a member that we initially had down for contact.
Yes, so Amos, this is Bob Butts.
Oh, Bob, okay.
Richard couldn't make it today. So I'm the program chair for the South Sound Sailing Society. And as some of you may know, we've been working with the supporters of Olympia Community Sailing to see whether or not we could put together a sailing small boat center proposal that could be located on this piece of property. And as Bob mentioned earlier, initially we thought it'd be a great site where looks like site E is, where the RV park is suggested. But upon further analysis, we concluded, like several others have, that the best site is immediately south of the parking lot at Amazon. So, oh, excuse me, not Amazon, at Hearthfire. And so it's over water site 2. But we also want to suggest to the port that the small unused portion of the marine terminal is immediately south. It's not part of the Warehouser contract, and if you look at it now, it's not being used at all. It's also an area that's not to be used based on a settlement that occurred a number of years ago on port contamination. So what we're proposing, and we've got a written proposal that I'm hoping Amos will get it out to people. If not, we'll figure out a way to get it to all of you, where we go through and look at the different sites. We have a plan for a phased-in approach where there would be upland storage. We would deal with the creosote pilings and old dock that's there. I don't know how many of you have looked over the fence to see sort of what a derelict, decrepit dock we have there that looks like it's being hidden now, but clearly from a water quality standpoint and from a public enjoyment standpoint needs to be taken care of. In our view, the tax levy funds that come to the port can be used for 2 big purposes. One is capital improvements and the other is environmental restoration. And we're hoping we can have conversations with the port about using some of those funds in the future. Those funds are currently planned to be used for the RV park and also for the new office space. So when we look at the priorities from the first survey that came in terms of what the public wants, we think a sailing center, small boat center would provide about 5 or 6 of the very top priorities that people said in their surveys. Everything from access to water, recreation, environmental remediation, public docks, et cetera, et cetera. So we look forward to getting this document to you and looking to get your comments. It's a draft at this point, and we're hoping that the port and this planning process will take it seriously and that we'll be able to get the port commissioners to say, this is a great idea. We think it's going to improve access and make our North Point actually a great destination for individuals, families, both within Thurston County and beyond. So thank you, Amos.
Great, thank you. So that covers all the new members. Looks like there's quite a few of you still around. So I look back at the chat comments, or if there's anybody else that would like to weigh in, now would be a great time. Let's see. Patty mentioned something about Leonard's comment, some issues about sea level rise, which we talked about.
Yeah, and then I just think a lot of people are just mentioning that they're in agreement with some of the comments that are being made. So I've got all of these noted.
Okay, so that's all documented. If there's anybody else that would like to share, otherwise we can wrap up the meeting. I'll take that as a no. All right, thank you all for your time, and we'll look forward to our next meeting on the 24th.
Good meeting, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.